The following is a presentation of Muddy River Sports.
Well, welcome everybody to 11 Gold Helmets, brought to you by the Range at KC. We are joined by the head coach of the Quincy Notre Dame Raiders, Jack Cornell. I'm Chris Duerr, sitting in this week for the ailing Matt Shuckman. I will do my best to cover for Shuck, but those are gigantic shoes.
Good luck, yeah, no doubt. You'll do great, I'm sure.
We'll try our best here. Now, Jack, as you well know, having been around football for a long, long time, losses are an inevitable part of the process. Yep. You've had two really tough ones to two really good football teams. Mm-hmm. Where's your team at right now?
Yeah, I think obviously the last 2 weeks disappointing in the result, but they're games that we felt like we had a chance. Certainly, we could lose some key players early in both ball games that really affected us down the stretch, and just kind of in the waning moments of both games, making giving up some critical errors that really affected the outcome. But I mean, as much as we talk about the disappointment, I mean, hats off to both Sacred Heart Griffin and Springfield High. I mean, those teams really did a tremendous job of preparing and playing, and they were high-quality football teams. And it was really, I think, a good chance for us to test our mettle against a really good 4A size school in Sacred Heart Griffin and a really big school in Springfield High. So we learned a lot about ourselves, certainly, in the course of those two ball games, but it didn't feel like the typical kind of discouraging feeling after a game. I think we found a lot about ourselves. And things obviously to build on for the rest of the year.
There were a lot of positives in both of those games, and you always talk about 3 to 4 plays that changed the difference in everything. One of those problems that you had this particular week against Springfield was keeping your punters clean. How much have you worked on it this week? I mean, that's not something that is typically an attention to detail thing that your teams do. How much has that been a point of emphasis?
Yeah, big time. We spent a lot of time with that on Tuesday in that practice, trying to get that particular unit right. We felt like early in that game, we had a good snap from Connor Flax. Caden Marth has a really tremendous leg, but it really doesn't matter how good of a leg you got or how good of a snap you got if the protection is not there. So, we kind of went back to the drawing board a little bit. We had to look at ourselves in the mirror to an extent, but I think really for us, it's not about who we're blocking, it's about how we're blocking, and so I was able to lend some of my expertise in protection issues in that unit, but I think our guys understand that that's obviously not the standard that we want to live up to. We were living below the standard in that phase and in a couple other instances in the game on Friday, but I think our guys, obviously, we talk about whatever you put on film, that's going to be your resume.
Right.
And whatever plays you put out that's going to show some errors, the other teams are going to capitalize on that. They're going to spend a lot of time focusing on that. So trying to identify the players in this protection who gave up that block and show them, like, hey, you guys are now, you're the mark. So you're the guy that the teams are going to be coming after from here on out. So you got to come correct in everything that you do. It's not about holding up a guy for 5 full seconds. I mean, you're not having to pass protect for Lamar Jackson or something. Right. He's just going to run around and do all that. But you got to hold him up, you got to stop the rush, and you got to get down the field, and you got to make a play. So not trying to overcomplicate it, but certainly just trying to be more efficient in what we're doing.
To get a little pressure on yourself in situations like that, in ball security issues like this past week, better to figure that out in September than down the road and being untested. I got to imagine you have some better canvas to work with in terms of film and who you are based on the last 2 weeks.
Oh, of course. I mean, because as I said, those are two really high-quality opponents, and for us to really see where we're at as a program against two really good football teams, we see what we have to work on, and that kind of helps us guide our practice plans through the week and how we prepare and what are the things we need to really spend the time working on. I mean, you got to work on everything in the week that you got. I mean, it takes a full week to beat a team. But when you're making mistakes like that, you really got to go back and you got to attack those things very diligently.
You saw two really good quarterbacks the last 2 weeks in terms of guys that can make things happen. How does that help your defense now?
I think it helps all 3 levels kind of understand where they fit in their role in a defense, right? So the D-line really have to do a better job of rushing the passer and try to affect his throwing motion as best they possibly can. Linebackers, while they're there to stop the run, also there to stop any intermediate throws, the curled flat area, the short kind of throws. And on the back end, for our guys to, whether it's zone, get to their zones, if it's man, running with their man, For us in the last couple of weeks in particular, we've been banged up, and that's not an excuse. Everybody's banged up this time of year, but I think what that does is it really allows our coaches to stretch their capacity as far as how they call games, but also who are the other guys then that we can rely on and put into ball games. Young guys who are going to be around for another couple of years, putting themselves in big time moments and seeing what they're made of. And been really impressed with some of the guys that have been put into those roles that I'm sure we'll talk about on this show. But just really trying to figure out how you're going to win a football game is always kind of the fun part. It's the stressful part, but it's the fun part as well. And so on defense, all three levels, trying to understand their role in the system and trying to play to the best of their abilities.
I think also against Springfield High, you saw the first real glimpses of the kind of power run game you might see in the postseason. And obviously, the lead back for Springfield is a load, any way you look at the way that he runs. What did your guys learn from that as well this week in terms of kind of playing with more gravitas in run defense?
Yeah, I think at that point it's really about just imposing your will and trying to, it's not as much as it's about fundamentals and technique and scheme, it's really about a desire to compete, right? And especially if you're a D lineman that love to rush the passer, but you got to play the run as well. So you got to be able to prepare for all of these scenarios in a game. And for a team like Springfield who has the ability to stretch the field, to get the ball out quick, and also to run, I mean, you got to be on your toes at all times. Springfield was very dynamic in how they put different running backs in the game. The quarterback did a good job running around. I mean, Brody Scheffler, for as good of an arm as he has, he also has a really good ability to fit the runs and to read things the right way and to really challenge the defense. So for us, not trying to do other people's jobs. I mean, the end has got to have the quarterback. The linebacker's got to have the running back. And so not to get outside of what it is that you're expected to do and just do your job.
So we talked about some of the niggling things that you want to fix. What are some of the things you've seen positively the last 2 weeks that you take away and you spin forward and you go, obviously the fight in your team, which was great both weeks, but what do you see that you go, okay, that's an outlier asset that we can build forward from?
Yeah, I think that we have a good ability to run the football. I think as we've talked about on this show before, we've got different guys who we can put in and, give them the ball from the backfield. Needing our linemen, obviously, to open up run lanes and to be effective blockers. That helps us open up things on the outside. I mean, we got a really good quarterback. John is very talented. He's really improving over the course of the year. He's finally getting some stress and pressure in him, which a young quarterback needs. And I think kind of to your point from earlier, rather for these guys to get that feeling now in September and clean it up as you move into October, and then, God willing, into November as well. But John's got the luxury of having some really tremendous athletes on the outside. And as of the last couple of weeks, I mean, everybody that we put out there has scored a touchdown, has a touchdown reception. So I think the more we can spread the ball to those different guys, the more lethal it makes us as an offense, the more comfortable it should make John as a quarterback. And he can run, too. I mean, he's not afraid to pull it down and get up the field. And I think for him to just have that understanding of, when it's time to make a decision, let's make the decision and let's live with it. He's starting to become more comfortable with that for sure.
The mad wizard in you when you're calling plays, I mean, you've got some options. We kind of saw that with the Wildcat formation with Gavin Dolman this week and some of the fun things you do. I mean, how much is there left to rip the lid off of this box and do fun things? Because you have guys who are super talented and super versatile, Jack.
We sure do. And we've got guys that I think have a desire to compete and want to help the team be successful. Obviously, Gavin is a special athlete, and so we want to put our special athletes in special spots, similar to what we did with Wyatt last year, and just give him the ball and let him do what he does, Kind of our mantra has been to make the defense defend every blade of grass. And so it's fun to see Gavin go out there. And we've got some more wrinkles that we're cooking up, too, that I wish we could talk about, but maybe someday we will.
I'm not going to ask you about those now because I don't want to get myself in trouble, but where does this inspiration come to you? Do you wake up in the middle of the night with plays running through your head?
I'm very blessed to have high-quality assistant coaches that have great football minds. Brent Fisher, really, our O-line coach, has been with me for all 8 years and has been at QND for a long, long time, and the good people of Quincy obviously know who he is. I got to give him a lot of credit for a lot of these ideas because he's kind of the mad scientist when it comes to a lot of this, and I can always tell when he's got his white lab coat on because I'll get these text messages during the middle of the day or at night, and he's like, hey, Coach, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about putting this guy here? And it's like, that makes sense. And so we can kind of put our brains together. We've got other assistant coaches, too, that are really good at being creative and just understanding who our guys are and what they can do, and then from there, being creative and just trying to take risks. I think that's something that we did last year that not only does it make us more difficult to defend as an offense, but you can tell that the guys have a lot more fun doing that too. When you can be creative and put different guys in different spots and just try some things and take risks, I think our guys right now really feed off of that, and they feel like that gives them a certain level of trust that we believe in you. You go do this thing. We're going to do some crazy stuff. Just go do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, let's move on to the next thing.
I can only speak to the cut-ups that I got a chance to see on film. Shane did a great job filming you guys on Friday night, mostly the positive plays. But it looks to my eyes like your offensive line is starting to get it at a pretty high level, especially at those great moments.
Yeah, and we've had some new guys in the lineup in there due to injury. And again, it's good to see those guys come off the bench and go in and still play at a high level. It's good to see the guys that have been there playing in those spots for a while now still play at a very high level, and the young guys coming along as the season happens. We're fortunately getting healthy right about now, which is great for us. But we've played two really fantastic defenses the last 2 weeks, and really have done a lot to challenge us, and especially up front. Springfield has a tremendous lineman, Trey Sutton, we talked about on the show last week, that really challenged us physically in a lot of ways. But it also really makes you focus on the particulars of your job. I mean, you got to have a consistent stance, because if you have a different stance for a run and pass or a pull versus a dry block, these smart guys can figure that out and have a tip. So we obviously want to clean that up. But I think our guys are playing well together. They've got a very unique competitiveness through the week, whether it's on scout team or their team reps. I mean, these guys really get after it, and I think that carries into the game and how they play at a high level. We're
going to take a pause now. When we come back on 11 Gold Helmets, Jack is going to give us his award winners for Week 5 of the high school football season.
It is fall, there's a chill in the air, there's also going to be footballs in the air here at the range. 29 TVs outside, 13 TVs inside, and we're going to have all of your NFL games. We're also going to have local games, so if you want to catch some high school or college games, you come here. Also, you asked for it, we brought it. Blue Moon is now on tap. And don't forget, you can always rent out our patio, private, just for you, right here at the range.
Welcome back to 11 Gold Helmets, presented by the great folks at the range at KC. Jack, I know you kind of poured through the tape. You've had a chance the last 2 weeks to get a better read on your team. Let's look back at last week being Week 5, and what you kind of saw as the outlier moments from some of your top players in that game.
Yeah, it may not show up necessarily on film with the results that this particular unit got, but Caden Marth as a punter for us in special teams has really become a weapon. In my 8 years here, I've really somehow been incredibly blessed with punters who have a legitimate ability to flip the field. In my first year with Brendan Moss, I mean, this guy would just drop nukes off his foot left and right. We knew when we get into fourth down, we'd be able to pin the defense back. And then when he graduated, Dalton Miller came in and really did the exact same thing. I mean, just the sound of the ball off of his foot, it made noise, and really reverberated through the stands. Last 2 years, we had Ivan Hoon, who had a really good ability to do that. And now Caden Marth is the next heir apparent, and he just really has a great ability to get the ball, get it off in good time, and as long as his protection holds up, when we had our first punt of the game, which we had a formation issue on, we pinned him inside the 2-yard line, and that really was a huge deal for us. When it got called back, that momentum swing was obviously challenging, and then on top of that, we give up a block. I mean, that made it very difficult, and I think it kind of ensued from there. But Caden on special teams really shows up in a big way. Also does Gavin Dolman, also does Oliver Triplett, these guys with the ball in their hands. But I never really understood or appreciated the value of a good punter until I became the head coach.
Funny how that happens.
Exactly.
Yes.
As an offensive lineman, I was like, whatever. Especially when I had roommates who were kickers and punters, and they, in training camp, we'd be sitting in these hour-long meetings, and they'd be back at the dorm rooms playing video games.
Best gig in town.
Best gig in town. So we're fortunate that Caden Marth is a really talented punter for sure.
You talk about that, Jack, and you mentioned Dalton Miller. There's some similarities between those two kids, is there not, Caden and Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, just the altitude that their balls get and the spiral that comes off their foot really it gives us the ability to cover down the field at a very fast pace. Our gunners can get down there, our center gets down there, and then eventually when the protection is eased up, those guys get down there and then corral plays. And you know, any coach knows that the closer that other team gets to the 50, the higher percentage chance that team has of scoring on the ensuing drive. So for us, we obviously want to pin them back as far as we possibly can to lower their chances as best as possible for them to score. And so Caden definitely gives us that ability.
Let's talk about your offense. Who was the standout? Who were the standouts this past week against Springfield?
Yeah, Gavin Dolman made a lot of big plays yet again, stretching the field in big ways. Braden Smith had some big catches, especially in the end zone, where he just finds a way to make plays, you know. And so for us, it's not just Gavin that you can focus on. It's not just Jay Sallingsworth you can focus on. You got to worry about guys like Robbie Reed. You got to worry about guys like Braden Smith. You got to worry about, obviously, the run game as well. But our receivers, you know, catching passes down the field was a really big thing for us. Would love to see them improve their blocking. I mean, maybe that's the offensive lineman in me. I mean, who knows? But we spent a lot of time this week working on that particular phase for them. But, you know, those guys really did a great job. John, again, it was good for him to have some of those struggles that a first-year starter would have. You know, he does really good at protecting the ball. I think his protection could have been a little bit better down the stretch in that game. But no matter what kind of pressure he's getting on him, his eyes remain down the field. He's looking for his targets. He knows where he wants to evade the pressure. And he's trying his best to get the ball down the field. He did have one interception, but it was kind of a freak play where Gavin kind of pops it up in the air, didn't quite catch it, and the other team comes down with it. But John is smart with the football. He's getting better at making decisions and trying to get rid of it when he needs to. And again, those are things that come with live reps, which he's getting more and more of as of late.
How does he do reading the field and how it breaks down for him? Because that's something that obviously young quarterbacks, that's an acquired skill, I guess, over the course of it. I was super impressed from the get start how well he seems to see the field.
Yeah, like I said, he has a great ability to keep his eyes down the field despite the pressure that's bearing down on him. And I think that, number one, that's a trust that he's got in his protection. He just trusts the guys are going to get the job done. Number two, he trusts that his receivers are going to find the open spot in the gap and have a really good relationship with the concepts and know the routes. I think John has a good mental image in his head of what each play looks like. And from there, he's able to read the defense and where they're going. And Coach Crawley, our quarterback's coach, does a really good job of working with him through the week as far as the timing of progressions, finding the open windows, and cutting loose once you have that opportunity.
I'll get to the defense in just a second. One more question on your receivers, though. Is there one guy who may be ahead of everybody else in terms of blocking as a receiver at this point?
You know, they all really take turns in doing that spectacularly. Jay Sallingsworth is a physical football player. Gavin as well. Braden Smith can be at times. Sometimes Braden can be a little bit too aggressive, which is okay with a guy like me. I would rather have to coach a guy down than have to coach him up. So I think all those guys that get in the game are very effective in doing that. And you could tell that they all want success for each other and are willing to do that for each other.
I don't want to lead you with this, but I watched back through your defensive highlights, and I did see Gavin Flester pop all over the place. But who, to your mind, against Springfield's high school, kind of stood out?
Yeah, we needed Gavin to have a big game.
Yeah.
I think that he had some opportunities missed the week before at Sigerhard Griffin, that he certainly would have wanted back. So for him to get in this game last Friday and have those opportunities and make big plays against a really athletic quarterback who could run away, he was doing a great job of having a more disciplined pass rush, reading the offensive tackle, being able to work back up under when he got even with the quarterback. But he's a guy that really for us has to be elite in that spot. Sam Clouser also does a great job on the other end, other side of that. Clouser the last couple of weeks has had to play both ways at tackle as well. So his conditioning has showed up in a big way. He's been able to play and fight through some things the last 2 weeks that still make him very effective. On the back end for us, we had Trip Flesh get plugged in the game against Sigerhard Griffin that, one of his first couple plays in that game, he has to cover a running back wheeling out of the backfield. And for whatever reason, the last several years, that's been a very challenging route for us to cover. But he really picked it up like he's been doing it forever. And had some big pass breakups in that game, was in a really good spot this last game. And the Springfield really challenged those guys, and down the stretch we went to a real man coverage type of scheme. and just tried to, be athlete on athlete. And Tripp did a great job of really being in the right spot and making plays, but his desire to compete is really at an all-time high. And I think that when you got a guy who has a desire to compete, who puts in the work to prepare, and then he goes out and plays well, all of those things, equal out to being a good football player that he is. So the future is very bright for him.
The play he made on the punt to keep that ball out of the end zone, I mean, that's a special kid.
Yeah, he just got a really good knack for football. He's a good football player, a tremendous athlete for sure, but a guy that really had to earn his way on the field. When the season started in July, I can remember being at the Culver team camp and him being a guy that we're like, all right, let's see him make this step and earn your way onto the varsity field. And he wasn't quite there yet. He was just short, but he kept at it. He didn't get discouraged. He kept working. Like, he was disappointed he wasn't getting more opportunities earlier on, but just kept at it. And I think that kind of spirit that he brought to it eventually is what helped it, pay off when he did get into the ball game and make some big plays. And now he's a guy that we really rely on in a lot of big moments.
Are you a believer in the fact that sometimes because you needed Tripp, obviously creates maybe that little shred of barrier that gets a kid there? And
that's exactly what I told him. It's funny that you mentioned that. After the Sacred Heart Griffin game, was that you've been working for this for so long, and you've been dedicated, and despite just being short to make those plays, when the team needed you to go out there and make those plays, you did it in a big way. I mean, not just the wheel out of the backfield, the running back. He made one in their end zone that was a tremendous pass breakup, on one of their best receivers. And you could tell that this was a experienced quarterback with an experienced receiver trying an inexperienced defensive back, and the inexperienced defensive back came up and made a big play. So that, again, I think just shows how prepared he was for that moment, because when his opportunity came, he seized it. And I think that's the kind of play that really can define somebody's legacy down the road.
Well, this man and his football team has a very critical stretch ahead over these next 3 games. In particular, when 11 gold helmets return, we'll continue and look ahead to Springfield Lanphier and more.
It is fall, there's a chill in the air, there's also going to be footballs in the air here at the range. 29 TVs outside, 13 TVs inside, and we're going to have all of your NFL games. We're also going to have local games, so if you want to catch some high school or college games, you come here. Also, you asked for it, we brought it. Blue Moon is now on tap. And don't forget, you can always rent out our patio, private, just for you right here at the range.
And welcome back to 11 Gold Helmets, again presented by the great folks at the range at KC. Jack, you have got an incredible stretch, which I really think will set the calculus of everything that comes ahead for you, starting on the road at Springfield Lanphier this week. What stands out to you about Lanphier?
Yeah, this is a team that struggles. They're in a different spot than we are right now, certainly, but they had a big win week 1 against Lincoln. These are guys that play hard. They compete well. Mistakes and some inconsistencies here and there kind of keep them out of ball games. But for us, we got to go on the road. It's a Central State opponent. And it's kind of crazy to imagine, but at the end of this game on Friday, the season's 2/3 of the way over.
Yes, it is.
And I think that, if anything, our guys are starting to have a grasp on that no matter who your opponent is, you can't take anybody for granted, and you're only afforded so many of these opportunities that no matter who it is, you got to go out and be the best that you possibly can be. So for us, going over there, it's a really beautiful stadium. Coach Miller is doing a great job with those guys and, the struggles that they have at Lanphier, but I think for us, just controlling what we control and trying to be at our best, handling another road trip. Springfield, again, is really not that far away, comparatively speaking. But going in behind enemy territory and just kind of being with ourselves and with each other and just trying to play our best football.
I know you don't listen to any of this, but you will probably be favored in the next 3 games. That doesn't matter. It's attending the business this week. I would think after the last 2 weeks, you have your kids' undivided attention.
No doubt. And we made a big emphasis this week about the fact that, your season is essentially 2/3 of the way over. This thing is more done than it is towards the beginning, right? And it's kind of emotional when you think about it, because a lot of these guys have been playing specifically for Raider football for 8 years. When you look at our 11 seniors that we got. And, of course, next week will be senior night, and I can't wait to talk about our seniors next week on this show. But, these guys have put in a lot of work, and the last 2 weeks' results really obviously hadn't been what we wanted them to be, but we've been right there with two really, really good football teams. And so for us, these next 4 games, trying to put our best foot forward and compete and try to win at a very high level, that's really the sole focus. So for us, it's not even just about winning and losing as much as it is about the process, about trying to find ways to let's go win a game together. Because we're going to wake up one morning in December and this is all going to be over. And we're not going to have any more practices to prepare for. We're not going to have any more opponents to game plan against. This whole thing is going to come to an end. And even when the coaches are upset and mad and yelling at you, you're going to miss that one day, you know. You're going to miss that pursuit of trying to win. You're going to miss that process. So for us right now, let's just lean into that. Let's focus on the process and being the best that we can be day in and day out, and just ultimately trying to do whatever we can to win a game. If we can follow the process and be dedicated to that, the score would take care of itself.
You also know that based on place that, Lanphier is right now in a couple of weeks that Lincoln is, you're their whole season. I mean, this is the reason that they exist down the stretch, because a lot of the other goals they may have had preseason have been taken off the table for them. One good blow against you makes their year, does it not?
No doubt. And, I think we're Lanphier's homecoming game this weekend, so I'd expect a lot of people there. I think that while the scores may not indicate it, they seem to have some momentum and success going. I think they've got the same coach this year as last year, so that level of consistency is great for their players. And with what they do to work and try to win, they obviously want to make strides, and I think that you could see that on film slowly they are. These guys athletically are very talented. Teams like this are a challenge because maybe you don't always know where the quarterback's going to go with the ball, so everybody on the field has to be alert. They've got guys who, if you let them get past you, they can make you pay. So for us, just trying to control, keep everything in front of us, especially on defense, that's got to be paramount for sure. But you're right. I mean, if these guys can get a good shot on us, I mean, that's going to do a lot for their momentum.
I know you're a big iron sharpens iron guy, and this is the honing season as well, because you have goals beyond the regular season, and I think they're very, very attainable for you. What are some of the things that you want to see better from your football team, Jack? And I'll leave you with this week. Based on the last 2 weeks, spun forward so that when you face a playoff caliber team in week number 10, you're a better version of who you are.
Well, I would love to see us end the game in one piece on Friday. That would be big. The last 2 weeks have been, pretty big with injuries. Yeah. But, I mean, that happens, right? I think for us, a big point of emphasis has been a desire to compete, and really it goes beyond football, but it's about, like, us as individuals. If we have a greater desire to compete than somebody else, even if you lose, that desire to compete is going to separate these guys from many of their contemporaries. I can't tell you how many times in my gym class at QND, right, where I'll give the basketball to one kid and I'll say, all right, if you sink this half-court shot, we'll do whatever you want to do today. But if you don't, you owe me 25 push-ups. And they're like, coach, I don't know. I don't know if I can make it. It's like, who cares?
Gamble and take the window.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I would rather see somebody step up and have that desire to compete and put themselves out there, because there needs to be more of that in our world today. More people just willing to step up and face a potential loss, face a potential huge win. But having that ability to compete and sustain that over time is what's going to make these young men in particular winners in life. And, the football is such a brief, vanishingly small part of who they are. You and I know that. It's been many moons since we played football.
Some of us more moons than others.
You said it, not me, my friend. But it certainly shapes us into the individuals that we are today. And that's ultimately what I want to leave our guys with is your win-loss record you won't remember in 5, 10, 15 years from now or beyond that. But what you'll remember is, did I have a desire to compete? Did I give it my all? Did I really buy into the process? And if you can say yes to those things, then I can almost guarantee you're going to be a winner in life.
What a great point to leave it on. And remember, that doesn't stop when you're 18 years old. That will to compete, if you can keep that lifelong, kind of keeps you young.
Amen.
Great job, good sir. Go get one this week at Springfield Lanphier. Again, this has been 11 Gold Helmets with this guy, Jack Cornell, presented by the great folks at the Range at KC.
Go Raiders.
Muddy River Sports. Our home, our sports.